I'll be turning to other aspects of his work. Does any other member wish to speak? Albert Chen, when it comes to blossoming Paul, well, Raymond Chen also referred to Disneyland in Northland Town, and also for the replanting of trees. Some 80% of those would be foreign species, and back then I took the lead in criticizing the administration's planting strategy, and I've been criticizing that for years. And as a result of that, instead of introducing alien species to the local community, they're actually trying to plant local species and native species to the margin of some 80%. And well, back then, Mrs. Tong said that she liked Bohemia. That's why some officials tried to curry favor from her. Well, please focus on the amendment. Well, I was just saying this. Well, some 1 million trees were 1 million Bohemia trees were planted, and it's a very weak species. Whenever there is a typhoon, then we'll see many Bohemia trees being felled by typhoons. All right, I refer to energizing Kowloon East, and it's very much a planning problem. But I'd like to touch on the more specific issue.
The Office of Energizing Kowloon East has got $30 million and for its office expenses, and part of it is also for staff emoluments. As at the 31st of March 2015, the establishment would reach 18. Well, I will not go into details as regards its duties. Now, it will promote the development of Kowloon East. It will ensure that members of the public and stakeholders can take part. It will provide support, and it will provide resources for the development. The total design and development cost is now $20 million, and the maintenance is $400,000 per year. Since the concept of energizing Kowloon East was launched, the industrial buildings have seen their rents going up. In the past, art groups were using the industrial flats for their studios, but because of energizing Kowloon East, the rents are now beyond their affordability. Recently, some industrial flats were transacted at almost $4,000 per square foot. In the past, it was around $1,000 or so per square foot. I think it's all because of a change in the government's policy, and the rental is now no longer affordable because of the energizing Kowloon East. Now, if you own the whole industrial block, you can have it converted to an hotel, and under some circumstances, you can do it without paying a premium. So, very often, policies are related to interest. And as Mr. Lau Kwok said, some Siwa Leung fans supported Siwa Leung after the energizing Kowloon East policy was launched. I understand some developers, for those who support Siwa Leung, they may not necessarily be property developers holding land in Kowloon East. Just to respond to a point made by Mr. Lau Kwok-hung, energizing Kowloon East is now given top priority. An office has been set up there. Of course, Chi-chuen promised to have a sports stadium there, and Kai-tak is so designed that it has got special concepts. Of course, they were already there before Carrie Lam became the Secretary for Development. As regards the environmental friendly transport link, I am very against this. We should not have this in a very localized area. We should learn from the painful experience of Tuen Mun and Tin Shui Wai. And when we visited Sydney, there was a monorail, and it has proved to be a failure because it only ran in part of the city. We've never seen any successful case of a particular green transport network serving a small area. For instance, in Calgary, they have a part of the city being served by its old tramway. It is okay. It's just like the trams we have in Hong Kong. But when it comes to transport planning, if we have a very localized design, like the railway system planned for Kai-tak, it is not desirable. I hope that the government can give us examples, successful cases in other places. For instance, I have not seen any successful case in other parts of the world. Of course, if the government wants to favor Kowloon East in particular and wants to subsidize such a system with public money there, I think they're doing it at the expense of taxpayers. I think this planning concept will prove to be wrong. And other districts will ask how come this area is so special. I always criticize the government for treating residents in NTS as if they were secondary residents. Now, for other parts of Hong Kong, for every 50 to 80,000 population, there will be a railway station. You can check previous planning documents. For every 50 to 80,000 population, there will be a railway station provided. Of course, the railway system also makes money. Whereas for Tin Shui Wai, the population is 300,000, and yet there is only one railway station. For Hong Shui Kiu, it is planned to house 220,000 people, and yet there is only one railway station planned. You are going to spend tens of billions of dollars on a new system in Kai-tak. Although the budget is not yet released, but we know the study alone is already very expensive. So why is it just in Kowloon East? Why can't you lick up? Why can't you provide the same for districts like Kowloon East and other parts of the territory? Why can't you do justice to residents of Tuen Mun and Yuen Long? Now, if you look at it from traffic and transport strategic point of view, you will see how ridiculous the pedestrian-friendly or the environmental-friendly transport network there it is. But of course, members will not understand my concept because they are laymen. I have followed up on such issues for decades. Some members have no understanding of this matter. Perhaps they are just persuaded by some salespersons. People with a vested interest may be lobbying for the support of legislators. And these companies, these lobbying companies, can reach everywhere. When I monitored the 10 major infrastructure projects, there were lobbying companies trying to persuade me to support them. So when huge benefits and interests are involved, you must be objective and fair, considerate from the interests of the public, and you should use objective criteria to measure the value for money and cost effectiveness of a project. Because you are from Kowloon East, you should not allow your interest to prevail over the community's interests. Otherwise, the result will be disastrous. Mr. Cheng Chi-chuen criticized the Secretary for Development, Paul Chen, for many of his mistakes. He's a layman in many things, and he has totally ignored conventional wisdom and other people's expertise. Perhaps Carrie Lam has been overconfident in this energizing Kowloon East project. He very much want to show off, and very often this is how mistakes are made. Sometimes a person's strength is troubleshooting. They are very good at troubleshooting. But if he becomes too aggressive, then he is bound to go wrong. So let me forewarn you. Many years ago, Chairman, you may recall that I warned that Hong Kong would become just one of the many cities in China. I made this forewarning many years ago. It's just like how I warned Paul Chen, STU Chen. I think I'm quite accurate in my prediction. If the government insists on building this environmental friendly railway link in Kai Tak, it will become another white elephant, costing us a lot of public money. Now, I'd like to talk about amendments 618 involving the planning and lands branch. I have already commented on this, but we have seen a lot of problems with planning. And Mr. Raymond Chen talked about grabbing land. Now, I share some of his views, though I don't want to repeat his justifications. I think the situation is worsening. When it comes to grabbing for land, we will have more and more walled-like buildings. The situation will be worse than it was. We will have less green belts, and air quality would also deteriorate, leading to traffic jams and gradual reduction in commercial or community facilities at the expense of the quality of life of our citizens. I am sure that such adverse effects will keep appearing. I like to ask whether government officials intend to speak. The administration has no response to these amendments. All right, then I will continue to invite members to speak. Mr. Leung Kwok-hung. Chairman, Mr. Albert Chen kept talking about Carrie Lam and Paul Chen, saying that they were overly aggressive. Empress Xu had this fear of death. He worried that somebody would come to chop his head off. Now I'd like to talk about head 158. transport branch of the Transport and Housing Bureau. The secretary, the undersecretary, and the political assistants are all in question. First, about our railway. If you look at the mode of operation of our railway system, we keep pumping money into a corporation which the government owns 75%. The budget overrun of the XRL. Well, the MTRC has nothing to fear because, after all, it is funded by the government. If it doesn't have enough money, it will ask the government for more. I think this mode of operation is unique in the world. That is when a new railway is built, the operator doesn't have to pay for it. It is only doing it or building it on your behalf. It will even charge you for the administrative costs. How can that be? The railway is for this company to profiteer in the future. Our station is so expensive. There's going to be an underground car park, and we have to spend tens of billions of dollars for diverting the tracks. We discussed that in the debate on XRL. So the railway is no good at all.
Is there any delay? The government foots the bill. They want to get the prime sites to link up Austin Road and West Kowloon. The government spent another $10 billion. The business is of course good for the MTRCL. We all criticize Waters, but there's nothing to do with him. The government has given the concession. If he fails, he just say sorry, and that's the end of the story. This is the political ethics. This is about public powers, the use of public powers and use of public money. Everything is a mess. The government owns 77% of the shares of the railway. The government policy is this. The government holds the absolute majority of the number of shares, but the government will not make use of its power as a major shareholder to cause harm to the minority shareholders or cause any uneasiness among the minority shareholders. So the major shareholder is under the reins of the 23% of minority shareholders, and the management of the MTRC just hold these minority shareholders as ransom. Now the MTRCL increased its fares 5 years in a row. The policy secretary who represents the government in the board of the MTRCL, that is the fare adjustment mechanism. There is also a fare stability system. People say that you better comment that at the panel meeting rather than at the LegCo meeting. You can, but we have been discussing that for years by moving motions without any motions which don't bind the government, motions with no legislative effect. We've wasted a lot of breath. Now we asked for stopping this fare adjustment mechanism, but nothing has been done. I'm speaking on behalf of other people. Tan Ka-pil asked to stop the contracting out arrangement. Chan Kam Lam asked to link personal salary with the performance of the railway. They are all absent. They're not here. The MTRCL charges very high fares. The increases are higher than the rate of inflation. Its profit margin is high. How is your view on the MTRCL related to the present amendment? The Transport and Housing Bureau looks after that. Do you want me to read it out? I've asked them. They are responsible for supervising the railway and also the buses. It is under Government Secretariat, Transport and Housing, Transport branch review the price adjustment mechanism of the MTRCL. Also supervise its performance, land and marine transport. This is the most valuable asset, and it is within the reach of the Bureau because it holds 77% of the shares. If they are not able to do big things, then can they do something small? Is there a mechanism to reduce the number of accidents? They can do that. Is there a mechanism to build the platform screen doors earlier? Is there any mechanism to provide a toilet in each station? No, nothing at all. If you don't have money, I give you money. Look at the mass transit in Taiwan. Every station has screen doors and platform screen doors and also toilets. Now that was run by the Taipei municipal government, and now the MTRCL is owned by the Hong Kong SARG. The Transport Bureau, the Transport branch, is an important branch under Anthony Chung. And have they do anything in this regard? Nothing. And also there are hiccups, delays, and overcrowding. An entity called Chi-chuen said that there were too many people working, or there were more people working, and therefore there were more people in the MTRCL. But if you go out in the evening and go to Admiralty and see how many are speaking Cantonese and how many are working and how many have worked overtime and they are going home, no, many of them are speaking Cantonese, carrying a lot of many bags and baggage. They are in a high spirit. There is the MTR trains are overcrowded. Transfer, flexi hour, or not to giving concessions to tourists. But they don't, in order to compete for more business, they try to get as many people into the trains as possible. The Transport Bureau has not done its part. In terms of number of accidents, if it is tied to performance, then there will be cut in bonus, then they will not make such mistakes. So there isn't any penalty for failing to meet targets, and that's wrong. First, the fare adjustment mechanism has to be taken away. Fare increase should be in the hands of the government and then monitored by this council. That's the first step. The next step is to buy back the shares of the MTRCL. There are about more than 20% of shares held by the public. Just ask John Zhang. He is so good at public finance. If it doesn't pay out any dividend and it asks for a share subscription, further share subscription, then people will sell their shares. You don't pay dividend and you ask me to subscribe to more shares for a white elephant, then I will sell all my shares. I will sell all my holding of the MTLCL. That will solve the problem. Now the railway is built with public money, and it shouldn't be given to the consortia to make huge profits. The performance of Anthony Cheung is very poor, whether it is the monitoring of fare increase, monitoring of performance of the MTLCL, monitoring of the performance of the senior management of the MTLCL. He has failed. There is no mechanism to achieve this end. In fact, I can give you many examples, but I don't do that. My mouth is getting dry. I urge members who criticize the MTLCL here and there, please cast a vote in support of cutting the salary of the Secretary for Transport and Housing. Now, we can't cut the salary or salaries of the senior management of the MTLCL. Waters, he said you can't cut his salary. And also the so-called the man named Chow, you couldn't. You can't cut his salary. Those who cast the wrong votes in support of privatizing the MTLCL, if they are still in this chamber, they should vote in favor of my proposal. I oppose the privatization, and the fact proves me right. Finally, there is cost overrun with regard to the express rail. It can still be used if it is completed. But there is one thing which only Anthony Cheung can do, and the MTLCL can't do. Now, in fact, Eva Cheng, when she was the Secretary for Transport and Housing, she answered the question on co-location of the immigration facilities. Now, I provide you a big building for co-location. Now, 3 years or even 4 years have elapsed. Anthony Cheung, who is responsible for supervising the MTLCL, can see that the problem that if there is no co-location of the immigration and customs arrangements, then no people will make use of the express rail. The express rail will be of no use. If he cannot answer this question, then he is cheating me. The Transport Bureau, or rather the Transport Branch, and also the supervising officer should not be given any pay because of this. Thank you, Chairman. Does any member wish to speak? Mr. Chen Chi-chuen. Before I speak, I call a quorum.
张继群议员。
Mr. Raymond Chan. Thank you, Chairman. I'll move on to speak on the cut of Paul Chan's emolument. There are 3 more points that I'd like to add. First, on the confusion caused by the Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people and also conservation policy. On top of that, Mr. Paul Chan, the Bureau Director, before he managed to get any community consensus, he already tried to import labor. But then before I moved on to those 3 points, I'd like to explain a bit on Amendment 632 and 633. These 2 amendments are identical to cut the Undersecretary for Development's pay by 12 months or 6 months. So I have to explain a bit why I'd like to move this amendment. Do you have any idea about the name of the Undersecretary for Development? Well, most people would not like it, would not know it. But then for members of this council, ask yourselves, do you know their names? Well, we can just conduct an experiment because the other day a TV station approached me and Chiang and Michael Tian, and they played a game and they showed a picture of Paul Chan to us. Well, none of us was able to recognize his face, and then and Chiang just shouted, "All right, well, how can we recognize him? All right, this Undersecretary assumed office on the 6th of January, and his name is Ma Xiu-chuen. So his Chinese name is Ma Xiu-chuen, and his annual emolument is $2.54 million. So that's for your information. So the amendment targeting him is 632 and 633. All right, you might not be able to recognize his face. Is that the responsibility of the public or the lawmakers? Well, given the fact that he's so little known to the community, he must reflect on himself. Yes, one thing is we have not taken the initiative to know you, but then how about him? Has he taken the initiative to get to know others? Well, if you look at the terms of reference or the duties of the Undersecretary, there are 2 main areas. Number 1, to assist the Bureau Director in leading and in providing strategy for him. So, well, in formulating policy targets or objectives, and in setting priorities, and also in coming up with initiatives to set priorities, and also in achieving the policy initiative. Secondly, well, for inter-bureau and departmental issues, he will have to coordinate with other departments and bureaus. And whether or not, different departments are talking to one another, of course, I don't know. But then there is another duty, that is to assist the Bureau Director in liaising with the legislature and conducting political liaison. And there are full justifications for me to criticize him on this area. And one point that he has to do is that in accordance with the instruction by the Bureau Director, he has to attend meetings of this council, both at the panel, subcommittee level, and so on. He will have to explain and defend government policies, and he has to exchange views with lawmakers. And he also has to meet on a regular basis with lawmakers to ensure that all the policy initiatives that are being implemented will take on board lawmakers' views, and to ensure that lawmakers will fully understand the government's position. Well, from this angle, we can see that the Undersecretary has not done his job properly. The most controversial issue now is the budget. That's at the council level. And second, the advanced works are for anti-Northeast, and also investigation work and advanced funding for that. Well, we have been working on that for 2 weeks, and still we have not been able to deal with the amendments being moved. And Paul Chan is nowhere to be found, and therefore the Undersecretary has to be here at all times. So by being present here, has he been able to act on the instruction of the Bureau Director in attending meetings of this Council in order to give explanation to lawmakers with respect to government policies and so on? All right, he's here. He has answered members' questions. But then it's not a matter of how many questions he has taken. It's a question of whether or not he has been able to address members' concerns. So that's about how he discharges his duty. But then on the second point, he has not been able to do his job. That is to maintain regular liaison with this council in order to take on board members' views and to enable members to have a full understanding of government's position. If NT-Northeast development is so important because of land interest and so on, Paul Chan tries to stand aside instead of taking the lead in advocating those policies. But then the situation is so messy because there have been a lot of there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this. Well, Paul Chan might have approached you, but not me. I don't know if other pan-democrats have been approached. Well, at least for those of us who are most radically against it, you should have approach us to explain things to us to see if there are ways that can resolve the problem. That would also go back to the same problem. That is between the administration and lawmakers. Other than arguing things and communicating under the rules of procedure at formal meetings and so on, are there any informal ways of communication? All right, you're paid to do that job. So it's part of your duties, maintaining regular liaison with lawmakers. But sorry, this Undersecretary has not done that at all. For those of us who are most concerned about NT-Northeast development, for those of us who have the biggest question mark about the advanced funding for NT-Northeast works, all right, without a full understanding, we are not prepared to give you the green light, and yet we have never been approached, we have never been lobbied. So what's the point of giving you your pay? So your emolument should have been cut. I think there are full justifications for that. All right, he doesn't even pretend to have talked to us. Well, even if you have pretended, then we will still be looking at your attitude and demeanor and so on, so that members will have a full understanding of government's position. No, none of that.
He was like a recorder. He just kept repeating line to take at the panel meeting, and he has not discharged his function as a bridge between the government and the legislature. And as for Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people, has this policy been shelved? I think this is a myth. Let's take a look at the position of different officers. Wai Leung said that the property market is now more steady, and the government will keep a close eye on the situation. And when necessary, he will launch the highlights of his manifesto, and that is Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people. He believes that such a policy is well accepted by the community, but should be reserved when it is necessary. According to the understanding of his sophistry, I think his way of handling it is, on the surface, he did not say that the policy was shelved, but in effect, this is our impression. All right, evidence number 2. Mr. P.C. Lau, a core member of the long-term housing strategy steering group, he said that you can regard it as being shelved. And what did Paul Chan said? When answering a question by legislators, he said the government has never said that the Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people policy is now shelved. It's just speculation by the media. So who is right? Paul Chan or P.C. Lau? Of course, we should trust the Secretary for the Development. And should we trust Wai Leung or Secretary for Development? Listen to the rest what I'm going to say. In September 2012, Paul Chan said that the purpose of this policy is not to dampen the property market. But according to Wai Leung, this is a land development policy. Since Paul Chen said that the purpose is not to curb property or to dampen property prices. How come Siwa Leung said differently? And Siwa Leung said that the policy would be shelved for the time being and will only be relaunched when it's necessary. So this so-called launching a policy when the policy is mature is a misstatement. Is meant to mislead the public, to mislead the legislature. So Paul Chen thinks that the policy is not for suppressing property prices, while Siwa Leung said differently. So who is resorting to sophistry? Is it Siwa Leung or Paul Chen? Do we still have the policy Hong Kong, property for Hong Kong people? You have to give us a clear indication. Of course, policies can be changed with good justifications and explanation so that the legislature and the community can be convinced that shelving it is better than implementing it blindly. There should be a public debate. However, the secretary is more than forthcoming. When there is a change of policy, should an account be given to the legislature? So for this policy alone, Paul Chen should see part of his pay deducted. And on the question of conservation, we're even more worried. Well, for the archaeological site of Kwok-wai, Paul Chen said that we should set store by conservation. We must give regard to progress of our works. Luckily, he likes writing blogs, and I can quote from his blogs. From his blog, he once released a blog or a text on conservation and development. He said that some people have unconsciously put conservation and development in confrontation. In fact, this is not a zero-sum game. And he said that the Development Bureau has held international forums on conservation. And given the market pressure of redevelopment to preserve privately owned monuments and buildings, what measures should be taken? There is no consensus in the world yet. Now we want to conserve our historical relic, our monuments. So why do we need a consensus? Does he want a referendum to see whether keeping our history is more important or whether the alignment of the railway should be adjusted? There was a consultancy earlier this year on the policy to conserve privately owned monuments. In 2011, there was a similar international symposium on conservation and development. Are they friends or foes? Donald Tsang liked to talk nonsense. Now, these are two sides of a coin, and we should strike a balance between conservation and development. I think what Paul Chen said in his blog was very similar to what Donald Tsang said. But for Siwa Leung, he said that it is necessary to review our policy on conservation of privately owned monuments, and he also reconstituted the AB Antiquities and Monuments Board. And he also appointed Andrew Lam, town planner, to be chairman of the AB, and also newly appointed members Siwa Leung fans. I think conservation advocates would be very worried by what Paul Chen said in his blog. When faced with the dilemma of having development or conservation, we believe that Paul Chen would certainly have development prevail over conservation, and this should not be the attitude of the Secretary for Development. Now, pro-establishment members and unionists better beware. Kwok-chuen is paving the way for importation of labor. He said in his blog that the construction sector has taken various measures to attract new blood, and there must be enhanced training of young people. However, this is what he really wanted to say. It is not easy to increase the supply of labor because new graduates, new trainees are inexperienced, and therefore we must expand our supplementary labor importation scheme and import labor in a timely manner. Mr. Gary Fan. I'd like to talk about my amendment number 636 to cut from head 138 subhead 00 $1.69 million equivalent to 6 months salary of the Secretary for Development, Kwok-chuen. This is my last amendment in this joint debate, and this is also the last time I'm going to speak in this round of debate. In last year's budget, I moved a similar amendment. Unfortunately, Kwok-chuen, the Secretary for Development, has not shown any improvement in his work. This term of government, whether it be the CE, the FS, or the Secretary for Development, share this common habit. That is, they like to be keyboard fighters. For discussion of major policies, they tend to respond to comments in their blogs. They try to evade legislators, members of the public, and the media. They avoid facing them fairly squarely. Recently, an ancient well was exposed, was in an archaeological site in the works area of the Sha-Tin Central Link. That is a major discovery. Both the cultural sector and the community would like the government to exercise caution, and we must not damage that site for the sake of the railway works. However, the Conservation Authority and also the Secretary for Development, Kwok-chuen, said at the heat of the debate, or rather he disappeared during the heat of the debate. On the 20th of April, he released a blog, in his blog, a well in our history, and then he has disappeared. The chairman of the AOB has so long been the person to reply to inquiries from the media. Kwok-chuen has been derelict in his duty, and he doesn't deserve to be so well paid. As at the 17th of May 2014, Kwok-chuen finally came out to respond to inquiries. He said that the site that has completed its archaeological study should have its works resumed, and we should not delay the works of the Central Sha-Tin Link lightly. The Secretary for Development is also the Heritage Authority, and therefore, actually, he should not say that archaeological study is not important. He has not properly discharged his role as the Secretary for Development. Moreover, Kwok-chuen has continued to ignore the aspirations of the farmers and villagers in Northeast NT. They are asking for no relocation and no clearance of the villages. He has bypassed the usual procedures even before the Town Planning Board has completed its scrutiny. It has come to LegCo to apply for funding for the advanced works and infrastructure works of the new development areas. I think he is trying to create a fait accompli and by jumping the gun, and I think he has gone against procedural justice. The OSIP of Kwok-hung North and Fanning North has received 21,000 not and 21,600 representations and comments, and only 7 of them are in support of the new development areas. So you can see how views are divided, and yet Paul Chen has insisted on doing the advanced works in these 2 areas. I think he has totally disregarded public opinion. He has not carefully considered the serious harassment to the villagers and occupants of Kwok-hung North and Fanning North. This is not the first time the Bureau has resorted to all means to harass the villagers there who want no clearance and no relocation. Earlier, I received a complaint from these residents that all of a sudden the government announced a freezing survey of these areas. The information collected will be used for will form the basis for assessing the compensation and eligibility criteria of the new development areas. They're in fact trying to drive the residents out, and this has created a heavy psychological burden on the residents. As a result, a villager in Kwok-hung North could not bear it anymore, and he committed suicide. Whenever Lechko discussed this, or whenever Paul Chen attended public occasions, when the media or when participants have mentioned this suicide case, he would not face up to it squarely, and he would refute all accusations. The fact is he has acted in contrary to public aspirations, and he has refused to withdraw the plan.
He should have stepped down. Yet he is now receiving millions of dollars in terms of salary. That's unreasonable. In the past year, the administration has been testing the bottom line for developing the country parks. They test the water for developing the country parks. They test the bottom line of public opinion. And they have been exposed by the green groups. In fact, the proposals are related to green belts with vegetation covers. The green belts are to buffers for the country parks. Paul Chen, the Secretary for Development, has to take the responsibility for damaging the country parks if country parks are developed. I understand why the administration try every means to protect Anthony Cheung, the Secretary for Transport and Housing, because his performance is not so worse as Eddie or Greg So or Paul Chen. If he has to step down, then Eddie Paul Chen and Greg So should have stepped down much earlier. They cannot just remain in their seats. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the New Democrats, I move this amendment to cut the budgeted salary for Paul Chen for 6 months, and urge Paul Chen to seriously consider the views of those living in NT Northeast, and try to consider the proposal of using the golf course in Fanling as an alternative, withdraw the Northeast NDA, Northeast NT NDA project, and protect the green belts in Hong Kong, so that development will only be conducted on sites with no vegetation, so as to protect our country parks and its the ecology. Thank you. Mr. Tony Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, in this part of the debate, I will speak on Head 25, the Buildings Department, the RHSD, and also Head 85, the Buildings Department. They are Amendment number 61 and Amendment 418. I oppose these and other related amendments. Amendment 418 proposed to cut the annual operational budget from $1.14 billion to only $1,000. I have listened to Mr. Chen Chi-chuen's explanation. He proposes to cut the annual budgeted expenditure of $1.14 billion to just $1,000. One of the reasons is that in 2014, the Buildings Department has reduced its targets. Say, for example, for MWIS, the targeted buildings will be reduced from 2,800 to in 2012, and also 3,943 in 2013 to 1,000 in 2014. According to my understanding, the targeted buildings have been reduced because the workload arising for MWIS is very heavy and many units are involved. The department, Mr. Chair, please wait. The one in the public gallery should stop yelling. Mr. Chair, please go on. Thank you, Chairman. The department has to reallocate resources to deal with the targeted buildings in 2013. A majority of them have not been served with notices. I agree with the Buildings Department in adjusting its targets. In formulating any working target, the department must have adequate manpower to handle that. Otherwise, any target becomes meaningless. Mr. Chairman, with regard to the relevant professional associations, they have reflected their views time and again to me. The administration in recent years has launched various building management measures, such as mandatory building inspection scheme and mandatory window inspection scheme. The workload of the Buildings Department has substantially increased. Manpower in the department is not able to cope with the workload. I believe you can still recall that at the end of October last year, some frontline officers of the Buildings Department were on strike. They protested against the department's failure to deal with the shortage of manpower. Many political parties of this council supported this. The Buildings Department planned in 2014 and 15 to increase its establishment by 215. But if the proposed cut is endorsed, then the Buildings Department cannot increase its manpower. Its daily operation cannot be maintained either. It will affect the handling of UBWs and also building repair and maintenance. The proposal, therefore, is unrealistic and should not be supported. In recent years, the Buildings Department have faced a shortage of manpower. Because of the shortage of manpower, the RHSD has adopted the design and build approach. But not every project is suitable for design and build, and this may lead to increasing costs. The RHSD, therefore, has to have adequate manpower to cope with workload and meet public expectations. I fully support the administration in recruiting adequate civil servants. Therefore, with regard to Amendment 61 and Amendment 418, the proposal to cut the annual budgeted expenditure of the two departments to just $1,000 so that the two departments will not be able to operate effectively in the next financial year, I will not support that. Mr. Chairman, some members have spoken on Head 91, the Lands Department. Amendment number 454 to 467. 454 proposes to cut the expenditure of $1.6 billion, which is equivalent to the personal emoluments for the whole year of the department. I, of course, oppose that. The Lands Department is responsible for land management in Hong Kong. There are nearly 3,000 staff members dealing with land administration and related work. Cutting their annual budgeted salary will affect the administration's efforts in giving land approval or protecting government land, clearing unauthorized structures on government land, and so on and so forth. This will not be helpful to enhancing land administration. Some members also propose to move 7 amendments to Head 65, i.e. amendments number 324 to 330, and they include reducing the expenditure on 2 programs following up the LT long-term housing strategy, and also monitoring the supply of land for public housing. There is rising demand for public housing. The government has provided more resources to produce more land and more public housing to answer the call. The amendments, therefore, go against public aspirations. They are not favorable to the people, and I will therefore oppose them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does any member wish to speak? Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Mr. Kwok-hung. Let me briefly answer Mr. Tony Chair. Of course, I know he represents the functional constituency, his constituent. He has to speak for his constituents. If you oppose my proposal to cut salary, then you will have to support me, say, for the MWIS. This is mandatory. But you don't give manpower. The management doesn't give manpower to do that. There are many engineers who come to me and complain. They received an order. The buildings department doesn't have enough manpower to approve the plans. After they've completed their works, the buildings department doesn't have enough manpower to issue certificate of compliance. And therefore, the owner the owner doesn't pay the contractors. So whether they accept, they take the order or not, they are bound to be in trouble. Those who hold the reins should be held responsible. The Bureau is responsible for formulating policy, and the department is responsible for implementing policy. If the policy cannot be executed on the front line, then there's a dead end. The brain asks the hen to use chopsticks to get food. Instead, the hen gets shit. So who is at fault? Well, I'm not from the functional constituency, but many come to me. They make complaints to me, several hundred of them. Mr. Chair mentioned the increase of several hundred staff members. I really buttonholed the permanent secretary, and I said that's a mistake, and you need to increase manpower. And then he listened to me. If you don't cut their salary, then you can't put pressure on them, and we cannot increase the expenditure of the department. And that's according to the rules. We are not allowed to add the expenditure of the government. Well, I asked them to spend more money on recruiting 200 more staff members. That cannot be done. But if I propose to cut their salary, then I can put pressure on them and force them to increase recruitment. You want to add 400 to the department. The chairman cannot approve that unless the CE or Zhang Jiang gives the green light, give face to Mr. Chair. And then you get it. That's really absurd. I heard from Mr. Chi-chuen the policy on Hong Kong land for Hong Kong people, has it come to an end? Well, in fact, it has died without any illness. It has been aborted. They just sold 2 pieces of land to 2 Chinese companies. They sold 2 pieces of land to Chinese companies. How can there be Hong Kong land for Hong Kong people? So that's the end. That's a dead end. Paul Chen says that it's not for suppressing property prices. C.Y. Leung says that property prices have dropped and he is not going to do it anymore. Well, he should learn from Mr. Tong. If you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist. But we keep talking about it. And that's their problem. Well, in fact, Paul Chen is heartless. In fact, there are examples. When Fanny Law was the Permanent Secretary for Education, some teachers were unable to bear with education reforms. A few committed suicide. And she said a few suicides couldn't prove the education reforms wrong.
So when you say that, well, concerning an elderly gentleman's committing suicide, Paul Chen didn't really comment on that. All right, if you had known the history of Fanny Law commenting on teachers' suicide some years back, then what crime has Mr. Paul Chen committed? In fact, he has already made some improvements when compared to Fanny Law. All right, there is another experience that you have got. So that's the Star Ferry incident. And for the green groups, they claim that this place has historical value. And then Carrie Lam returned to Hong Kong back then. And then Donald Tsang felt that she's very tough, and therefore she was appointed as the Secretary for Development, and then she's responsible for the AAB. And then she said that, well, this is not a monument, and therefore we would not be listening to you. All right, Paul Chen is very smart. All right, on this occasion, we are talking about a relic dating back to the Song Dynasty. So what is that? So it's irreversible if you destroy it. So if you go there and if you ask all the antique investors to come along, all right, if you tell them that, well, I'm not able to do anything about it, then they'll tell you that just allow me to dig it up. Then many archaeologists from the mainland would rush here to help you with your archaeological investigation work. So we are talking about the history of Hong Kong, which could have been used as the text for our national education. All right. Well, we had a long history and culture that could be dated back to the Song Dynasty. So we had an emperor who came here during the Song Dynasty. So, Paul Chen, are you saying that, well, development is the hard rule, and so we can only follow this golden rule? But then if you go to Beijing, you see that all the monuments have been demolished for the purpose of development. All right, you're actually doing an even worse job when compared to Carrie Lam. Carrie Lam said that she would be prepared to discussing and sort things out because we did have a very objective set of criteria on the definition of monument and so on. But then if you're not prepared to change the alignment of a road, well, changing a road alignment should have been feasible. But then once a relic or a monument is lost forever. All right, for council meetings, that cannot be changed. And that's what I told the judge yesterday. So even the judge knew that when something happened, it could be irreversible. And that's why he's prepared to change the schedule of the court hearing to make way for my work in this council. All right, we're talking about a failed accountant, and he's using that qualification, and he has assumed the post of a development minister. But then development should always take into account history, or else he should not have been the chairman of the AAB. All right, you're wearing two hats. You at the same time the bureau director and the head of the AAB, and then you are making this statement, and you are apparently telling the board that there is no need for them to look into this because you've already made that conclusive statement. And then for this Mr. Ma Chi-chuen, I think he's the undersecretary, so it's even more, it's a classic case of Eric Ma. Well, he never approached me, he never talked to me. So did he approach you? Did Eric Ma approach you? Of course not. All right, he took office in January. It's already May. I haven't even received his business card. So, all right, he hasn't even contacted me by telling me that I'm Eric Ma. Well, under Rule 45.1, in fact, just now, at least one member, that is Raymond Chen, already commented at length about Eric Ma, who's not known to many councillors. It's not that he's not known by many members. He doesn't know me. So I think he has distorted the picture. Mr. Lau, please sit down. A member has just raised a point of procedure, and therefore I'll have to make a ruling. Eric Ma, the Undersecretary for Development, he's not known by members. Indeed, a member commented on that, but then Mr. Kwok-hung has not commented on that, and according to Rule 45.1, remarks made by other members would not prevent other members from commenting on the same point. So my purpose here is to make sure that the arguments will not be repeated, because if he's saying that there is a reason why he would like to support a particular argument or amendment, well, even if he uses the same reasoning in supporting an amendment, then even if other members have commented on that already, it doesn't mean that he cannot repeat it. So my duty is to make sure that you would not be repeating that time and again. And as Mr. Paul Chair just pointed out, your argument has been made by other members already. Well, I am talking this as the first-hand experience. Other undersecretaries have approached me, but then it's 4 months since he took office, and he never gave me his business card. He never sent me a fax. He never sent me any correspondence. Well, under 45.1, Mr. Kwok-hung, it says that you should not be repetitive. You should not be repeating the same argument time and again. You should not be giving many examples to illustrate just one point. So it's tedious and repetitive. So please avoid that. All right, I'm saying that given my experience, I've never seen other undersecretaries doing the same. I used to receive other undersecretaries' business cards and so on, and therefore I have no idea as to what he's been doing, and therefore I have to cut his pay. Another point is about his supervisor, Paul Chen. So it has to do with his boss, Paul Chen. With regard to the controversy surrounding anti-Northeast, the situation has come to a height. All right, Paul Chan and his undersecretary has not been doing their jobs. And how about his political assistant? He's nowhere to be found. So what kind of work is done by this bureau then? All right, for the top priority of the bureau, nobody seems to be working on it. So Paul Chan, in fact, Mr. Chairman, that's the harm that can be done by writing blogs. Well, he might have thought that, so long as he can pick an area where he's confident in, and then he can have some ghostwriters writing articles on his behalf, and then if he can post articles on his blogs, then it's okay. But then it's not for the bureau director to tell me what kind of flower I should be planting. Well, you should be addressing concerns of this council and the community. It's not for you to choose the subject to speak on. All right, Madam Chen Yun-han said that she'd like to see sakura blossoms. All right, immediately he rushed to address her concerns. Well, once again, Mr. Leung, you're digressing. All right, along that line, this development minister has not been discharging his duties. All right, I'll be turning to something else. It's about Anthony Cheung, housing. I'm not repeating any point. Which amendment are you referring to? Well, cutting his pay. I think I've repeated that time and again. I don't want to be repetitive. It all boils down to this. He is supposed to resolve this very important matter, all right, the landlord and tenancy ordinance. Well, I'll set that aside. All right, it's about the waiting list for public rental housing. All right, we have over 200,000 people on the waiting list, over 20,000 units to be built every year. So how can you meet the performance pledge of 3 years average waiting time? I'm not asking him to resolve this problem overnight. Chairman, you might say that it's an irresolvable problem. It's an insurmountable problem. So please don't make life difficult for others. But then at least you should have come clean by telling us that you cannot resolve the problem. Instead of struggling with reality. All right, you have over 200,000 people on the waiting list, and you only managed to get some 20,000 flats built within a certain time frame. So why don't you just be honest with us and tell us that, well, it's not achievable? Then I'll be prepared to accept that because it's not achievable. But then Anthony Cheung is still putting up a brave face, and he is still insisting that the 3-year pledge is achievable. But then there are people out there who have not yet been allocated a flat after 7 years. So when you still insist on the average figure, for the person or the guy out there, it's not meaningful at all. That's why I'm not being harsh on Anthony Cheung. I'm not asking him to play magic. I'm just asking him to be honest with us, so that he'll come clean on everything. That's the story about Qin Hui. So please support me in cutting the pay for Anthony Cheung so that he'll be prepared to come clean on this. Raymond Chan. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, Kwok-hung claimed that I had no idea as to the Kwok-hung incident involving Paul Chan. Somebody committed suicide and then he just turned a blind eye to that. Well, I have not included that point in my remarks. That's why, thanks to Mr. Leung, I can now call him cold-blooded Paul. All right, he has now got 30 nicknames. And then that's the last time that I'm going to speak on Paul Chan, judging from the time that we have. All right, I'll try to use a very scientific way to review the performance of Paul Chan. And what I'm holding in my hand is the duty list for Bureau Director. All right, there are 8 duties on the list. So we'll look at that one by one, and then we'll weigh and see how he's been doing. So you can use that to weigh the performance of Wong Kam-sing, Anthony Cheung, and Paul Chan. All right, you have to gauge public opinion and look at public sentiments. Well, has Paul Chan been able to do that? Well, of course, I think he has failed. As far as the anti-Northeast development plan is concerned, he has not been able to gauge public opinions with regard to the objections received by TPB. We are talking about 5 digits, and yet for those in support, it's just a single-digit submission. So, well, I think he has not done his job. He has not really rallied any support for him. All right, well, when the ratio between the opposition and those in favor is in such a wide margin, all right, he's now trying to get funding from the FC in order to press ahead with the advanced works. So I think in terms of gauging public opinions, he has completely failed. And also to come up with objectives and targets, and he also has to adjust policies, and he has to assist the chief executive in formulating policies in EXCO, and also he has to come up with legislative proposals and also funding proposals in getting public and this council support. Well, at the committee stage of this council, I've not seen Paul Chan coming to this council to ready for our support. He has not asked us not to cut his pay or his funding. Well, judging from the number of amendments that have been moved, neither him nor his undersecretary or political assistant has come to ready for our support. Fifth, attending council meetings and also moving legislative motions and so on, and in answering members' questions and so on. Mr. Lam Kwok-hung, what's your problem? I think Raymond Chan's views are wrong because he said that he has failed his job. I think you're acting in violation of the rules of procedure. Please sit down.
Yes, I should not say that I should have said that they have failed. Whenever he is here to answer all questions, when is it that members were satisfied with Paul Chan's replies? The answer is no. Number 6, attending meetings of panels and subcommittees and bills committees of the council to discuss important matters. Is Mr. Long Fat here? I'd like to ask her, since when has Mr. Paul Chan attended? When was the last time he attended meetings of the development panel? What about PWSC and FC? Has Paul Chan ever appeared on this very controversial funding bid for Northeast NTNDAs? Where is he? And to exercise the statutory functions of an accountable secretary. Well, there is no need for me to give him a score here. To ensure that policies can be effectively implemented and achieve the desired results. Well, we've spent 8 hours today. I spent a lot of time discussing the failings of the buildings department. This goes to show that Paul Chan has failed in monitoring the performance of departments under his bureau. So I think we really should cut the full year salary for Paul Chan. Now we have colleagues from the FTU. Paul Chan proposed or supported the implementation of labor. He's of the view that skilled workers should be imported in a timely manner. He has not reflected the reality here. At least FTU and CTU are 2 important labor organizations against that. Employers complain that they find it hard to employ workers. However, the cause of a labor shortage may not be because of a shortage of manpower supply. Perhaps it's because of wages. According to Census and Statistics Department, using the first quarter of 1919 as 100, if the figure is over 100, that means wages have increased in reality, and the vacancies will increase. The higher the index, the more the vacancies. However, if wages have marked time when the labor market is good, of course, employees would choose jobs that are better paid, and the construction sector will suffer. According the unemployment rate for this quarter is just 3.3%, and yet the figure for the construction sector is 5.6%, the highest among all sectors. And it's estimated that 82,500 workers are in this industry, and the number of vacancies 1,250. As at last Sunday, we have over 322,000 registered workers, a substantial increase of 41% since 1997. It's all because of the government's policies. Because in 2010, the Development Bureau spent $100 million of funding from LegCo for enhanced manpower training of local workers. Last April, it applied to LegCo again, and other $220 million to enhance its training measures, hoping that by the end of this year, we can have another 6,000 new blood. And what did Chen said in his blog? He expected the scheme to be successful, but checking the relevant information, in last January, he said in this council, he stressed time and again that he was confident that the policies would be able to satisfy the manpower demand of this sector for the coming few years. It's just a year or so after that. How come he has gone back on his words? Why has he overruled his own prediction? He said that we must expand this supplementary labor scheme so that we can import skilled workers to satisfy the very acute shortage of labor. I think this is a major discrepancy from the government's policy. According to the Labor Department, the SLS intends to import non-skilled workers so as to meet the demand in this area. That means the supplementary labor scheme intends to import low-skilled workers. These imported workers should not be those with certain skills, as claimed by Mr. Chen. So he is not well-versed in the policies of his bureau. His concepts are very confused. He just wants to turn the green light for further importation of labor. And he used the excuse of further infrastructure projects and housing developments as an excuse for further importation of labor, and this is unacceptable to all of us, to the community and to employees alike. These grand housing projects will not materialize in the coming couple of months. It can be 3, 5 years, or even 10 years before they will appear. So we should take time to train workers. This is better than this stopgap approach through importation of labor in the short term to fill up the gap. In conclusion, Paul Chen, the Secretary for for Development, he SDU poor, archaeological poor, hoarding poor, drink driving poor. Well, he has got 13 nicknames and 13 shortcomings. I urge members to support my amendments. With the few minutes left, I'd like to talk about the problems with energizing Kowloon East. I support Mr. Albert Chen's amendments 1010, 1011, equivalent to cutting the full-year expenses for energizing Kowloon East, and also the full-year expenses for staff emoluments of energizing Kowloon East. Now, the government is going to seek funding from LegCo again for the monorail to be constructed in Kowloon East. I think the media as well as the community are very worried whether it will be a replicate of XRL. Money will be spent on it with a very low patronage, and then the FC will be another battlefield. Please do not blame us for filibustering or moving motions or asking questions or making amendments for things that we don't have any consensus, or for things that the community opposes. The Bureau has decided to have it in its own way and to ask LegCo to sign this check for it. All right, $92 million will be spent on this study of an environmental friendly link. And in 2010, the budget was expected to be $12 billion, but because of inflation, we don't know what will be the revised budget. So the government is just asking for money to conduct a study on something which the whole community opposes. What is the point of having this study? Of course, if I can turn down this energizing Kowloon East project, you don't have to come to the Development Bureau panel next week. And what did the government say? You don't have to worry while we have yet to come up with a budget, whether there will be a budget overrun or repetition of the XRL. The Bureau tell us not to worry because the system will only be built in 2017. By then, the peak of our construction activities will be over. So 2015-16 will be the peak of our construction activities. By 2017, the peak is well over, and you don't have to worry about any budget overrun. Chairman, 10 years ago, when Kai-Tak was being planned, there was also already a study on this environmental friendly transport link for Kowloon East. Now you're asking money for a more detailed feasibility study and preliminary site investigation. It's just like what's happening to North East NT. You're asking money for a preliminary site investigation. Please open your eyes wide and look at overseas examples. Kuala Lumpur. The monorail was commissioned in 2003. A private company spent 3 million Hong Kong dollars to build it with a deficit, and the company went bankrupt in 2007, and the government had to take over. 1988, the monorail in Sydney only covered a very small area around Darling Harbour, and the patronage was just 6,000, far less than the 50,000 patronage of public buses. And people criticized the monorail as an eyesore, so it folded up last year, and they plan to demolish it. So do we want to repeat this tragedy in Hong Kong? If we do not learn from history, we will see history repeat itself. So other cities have regretted their decision to build such a system. And how about us? In 2010, the estimated budget was $12 billion, and no further estimate has been made since. Does any other member wish to speak? Now, we have spent about 8 hours on this debate, and this debate will end. And I adjourn the meeting. And may I remind you that from 9:15 to 10:45 we have the CE Q&A session, and the council is going to resume at 2:30 tomorrow, and we will go into the fourth joint debate. But why can't we have a summary of our speeches? Now, Mr. Chen, if you have followed me closely, around 9:30, I asked government officials whether they were going to speak or not. Our practice is, after government officials have replied, we will allow members moving amendments to speak once again. Since the public official declined to speak, I said that I will open the floor to members for further speeches. So, Mr. Chen, you have spoken for more than once since, so I believe members have had ample time to speak. The meeting is now adjourned.